The morning mist clung to the Afghan mountains like a shroud, and Staff Sergeant Maya Chen pressed her eye to the scope of her M24 Sniper Weapon System. At just 22 years old, she had already proven herself in ways that seasoned veterans found hard to believe. But what happened on that September morning in 2019 would become the stuff of military legend, a shot so impossible, so precise, that it would force the Pentagon to reconsider everything they thought they knew about age, experience, and the deadly art of precision markshooting. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Maya had grown up in rural Montana, where her grandfather, a Korean War veteran, had taught her to shoot when she was barely tall enough to hold a rifle steady. By age 12, she could hit a dime at 300 yards. By 16, she was out shooting hunters twice her age at local competitions. But nothing in those peaceful mountain valleys had prepared her for what lay ahead in the unforgiving terrain of Afghanistan's Hindu Kush mountains. When Naya first enlisted in the Army at 18, her recruitment officer had been skeptical. She stood just 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed barely 125 pounds. Her youthful appearance and quiet demeanor led many to underestimate her capabilities. During basic training at Fort Benning, drill sergeants would often shake their heads, wondering if this small-framed girl from Montana had what it took to survive in combat zones. But Maya had something that couldn't be taught in any military manual, an almost supernatural ability to remain calm under pressure and an intuitive understanding of ballistics that seemed to defy explanation. During her advanced individual training for Military Occupational Specialty 11B Infantry, she consistently scored perfect marks on the rifle range. Her instructors began to take notice when she started making shots that even they found challenging. The transition from training to real combat operations came faster than anyone expected. Maya's unit, the 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, was deployed to Forward Operating Base Chapman in Afghanistan's Khost Province in early 2019. The region was known for its brutal terrain and persistent Taliban presence. It was here that Maya would first encounter the reality of warfare, where a single mistake could mean death not just for herself, but for the soldiers depending on her precision. Her first confirmed kill came during a routine patrol that turned deadly. Taliban fighters had positioned themselves on a ridgeline approximately 800 meters away, pinning down her squad with accurate rifle fire. While her fellow soldiers returned fire with their M4 carbines, Maya methodically set up her rifle, calculated wind speed and direction, adjusted for elevation, and took the shot. The enemy fighter dropped instantly, his weapon clattering down the rocky slope. The sudden silence that followed was only broken by the distant echo of her rifle shot bouncing off the mountain walls. Word of the young sniper's abilities began to spread throughout the military community in Afghanistan. Senior NCOs and officers who had served multiple deployments started requesting her presence on high-risk operations. They had seen plenty of good shots in their careers, but Maya possessed something different. An almost eerie calm that seemed to slow time around her when she looked through her scope. Colonel James Mitchell, the battalion commander, first became aware of Maya's exceptional abilities during a briefing about a particularly challenging mission. Intelligence had identified a high-value target, a Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces, holed up in a compound in a remote valley. The problem was the distance, nearly 1,200 meters across terrain that included multiple elevation changes and unpredictable wind patterns. "Sir, I can make that shot," Maya had said quietly during the mission briefing, her voice steady and confident, despite being the youngest person in the room by at least 5 years. The colonel had looked at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. He had read her file and knew about her training scores, but this was different. This was a real-world scenario where failure meant the target would escape and potentially coordinate attacks that could kill American soldiers. He also knew that the military had invested considerable time and resources in training snipers, and losing one to an impossible shot would be devastating to unit morale. But something in Maya's eyes convinced him. There was no bravado, no youthful overconfidence, but just a quiet certainty that came from someone who understood her capabilities better than anyone else. The colonel approved the mission, though he insisted on additional support elements and contingency plans. The operation took place 3 days later, just before dawn. Maya and her spotter, Sergeant First Class Rodriguez, had moved into position under cover of darkness. The target compound sat nestled in a valley surrounded by rocky outcroppings that provided excellent concealment, but also created complex wind patterns. As the sun began to rise, casting long shadows across the mountainous terrain, Maya began her methodical preparation. She had learned early in her military career that successful sniping was as much about patience as it was about marksmanship. While Hollywood portrayed snipers as quick-draw artists, the reality was far different. Hours could pass between target identification and the actual shot, time filled with careful observation, weather monitoring, and precise calculations that would determine whether the bullet found its mark or sailed harmlessly into the distance. As Maya settled into her firing position, she began the mental checklist that had become second nature during her months in Afghanistan. Wind speed and direction, humidity levels, air temperature, barometric pressure, all factors that could affect a bullet's trajectory over long distances. At 1,200 meters, even the smallest miscalculation could mean missing the target entirely. Sergeant Rodriguez, her spotter, had initially been skeptical about working with someone so young. A career soldier with 2 previous deployments, he had seen his share of overconfident newcomers who thought they could revolutionize warfare through sheer enthusiasm. But Maya was different. She listened to his advice, asked intelligent questions, and never let her ego interfere with the mission. Over the past several months, they had developed the kind of partnership that only comes from shared danger and mutual respect. "Wind's shifting again," Rodriguez whispered, his voice barely audible even though they were alone on the rocky outcropping. "Coming from the northwest now, maybe 8 to 10 miles per hour?" Maya made minute adjustments to her scope, her movements precise and economical. She had learned that in sniper operations, every motion mattered. Too much movement could give away their position to enemy observers, while too little attention to environmental factors could result in a missed shot. It was a delicate balance that required both technical knowledge and intuitive understanding. The target compound below showed signs of activity as the morning progressed. Through her scope, Maya could see several figures moving between buildings, but none matched the description of their primary target. Intelligence had indicated that the Taliban commander typically emerged for morning prayers around sunrise, but operational timelines in combat rarely went according to plan. As they waited, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this remote mountainside. Her decision to join the military had surprised many people back home in Montana. She had been an excellent student with college opportunities, but something about military service had called to her. Perhaps it was her grandfather's stories about Korea, or maybe it was a desire to serve something larger than herself. Whatever the motivation, she had never regretted her choice. The specialized training required to become a military sniper had been the most challenging period of her life. The U.S. Army Sniper Course at Fort Benning was designed to push candidates to their absolute limits, both physically and mentally. Of the 24 soldiers who began the course with Maya, only 8 graduated. The attrition rate was intentionally high. The military needed to be absolutely certain that their snipers could perform under the most extreme conditions imaginable. During one particularly difficult training exercise, Maya had been required to remain motionless in a concealed position for over 18 hours, while instructors attempted to locate her. The exercise was designed to simulate real-world conditions where snipers might need to wait for days before taking a shot.
Many candidates failed this test, either because they couldn't handle the physical discomfort or because they made small movements that gave away their position. Maya had not only passed the test, but had done so while maintaining perfect camouflage and remaining completely undetected. Her instructors later admitted that they had walked within 3 feet of her position without realizing she was there. It was this ability to become one with her environment that would prove invaluable in Afghanistan's hostile terrain. Movement in the courtyard, Rodriguez's voice brought Maya back to the present moment. Through her scope, she could see a tall figure in traditional Afghan clothing emerging from the main building. The man matched the description they had been given, approximately 6 feet tall, prominent beard, distinctive white turban. Maya's breathing automatically began to slow as she entered what her instructors had called the zone, a state of heightened focus where everything except the target seemed to fade away. Her heart rate decreased, her muscles relaxed, and her vision seemed to sharpen beyond normal human capability. It was a physiological response that couldn't be taught, only refined through practice and experience. The target moved across the courtyard with purpose, stopping occasionally to speak with other individuals. Maya tracked his movement through her scope, noting his patterns and trying to predict where he might pause long enough for a clean shot. At 1,200 meters, she would have approximately 1.5 seconds of bullet flight time, meaning she needed to anticipate where the target would be when the round arrived. Range confirmed at 1,247 meters, Rodriguez whispered, his laser rangefinder providing precise distance measurements. Elevation angle -4 degrees, wind steady from northwest at 9 miles per hour. Maya made final adjustments to her scope, accounting for the slight downhill angle that would affect bullet trajectory. Many people assumed that shooting downhill was easier than shooting on level ground, but the physics were actually more complex. Gravity affected the bullet differently when firing at steep angles, requiring careful compensation to ensure accuracy. The target stopped near a wooden post in the center of the courtyard, apparently engaged in conversation with someone outside Maya's field of view. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for, a stationary target in an open area with clear line of sight. Maya positioned her crosshairs slightly ahead of the target's center mass, accounting for the wind drift that would push her bullet to the right during its flight. Her finger found the trigger, and she began applying steady, increasing pressure. The shot would break naturally when the pressure reached the trigger's release point, a technique that ensured maximum accuracy by preventing the shooter from jerking the trigger and disturbing their aim.
Time seemed to stretch as Maya applied pressure to the trigger. Every sense was heightened. She could feel the mountain breeze against her face, hear the distant sound of vehicles in the valley below, and see with perfect clarity through her rifle scope. This moment represented the culmination of years of training, months of combat experience, and a lifetime of preparation that had begun in the mountains of Montana. The rifle discharged with a sharp crack that echoed off the surrounding peaks. Maya maintained her sight picture, watching through the scope as the bullet began its journey across the valley. At this distance, she could actually track the projectile's path for the first few hundred meters before it became too small to see. The 7.62 millimeter round, traveling at approximately 2,650 feet per second, would take just over 1.5 seconds to reach its target. Rodriguez kept his binoculars trained on the target area, ready to spot the impact and call for adjustments if necessary. In sniper operations, the spotter's role was crucial for determining the effectiveness of the shot and providing information for follow-up rounds if needed. However, both soldiers were confident that a second shot would not be required. The target dropped instantly, confirming a direct hit. Through her scope, Maya could see other figures in the compound reacting with confusion and panic, running for cover as they tried to determine where the shot had originated. The extreme distance and elevated position of Maya's firing position made immediate retaliation unlikely, but operational security demanded a quick extraction. "Confirmed hit," Rodriguez reported quietly into his radio, using predetermined code words to inform command of the mission's success. "Package delivered. Moving to extract." Maya began disassembling her rifle with practiced efficiency, breaking down the weapon into components that could be quickly packed for movement.
Speed was essential now. While the enemy might not know their exact position, they would certainly begin searching the surrounding high ground for the sniper who had eliminated their commander. As they prepared to move, Maya felt the familiar mix of emotions that followed successful engagements. There was professional satisfaction in executing a difficult shot under challenging conditions, but also the sobering reality that her actions had ended a human life. Military training emphasized the tactical and strategic importance of eliminating enemy combatants, but it couldn't entirely numb soldiers to the psychological impact of taking lives. The extraction went smoothly, with the team reaching their pickup point without enemy contact. During the helicopter flight back to base, Maya stared out at the rugged Afghan landscape, already mentally preparing for the debriefing that would follow. She knew that this mission would be carefully analyzed by intelligence officers, operational planners, and senior commanders who would use the information to plan future operations. Back at Forward Operating Base Chapman, word of Maya's successful shot spread quickly through the military community. A 1,247-meter kill in mountainous terrain with variable wind conditions was considered exceptional by any standard, but the fact that it had been accomplished by a 22-year-old soldier with less than a year of combat experience was remarkable. Colonel Mitchell called Maya into his office the following day for a personal debriefing. He had been following her career closely and was impressed not only by her technical skills, but also by her professional demeanor and tactical judgment. Many young soldiers achieved early success and then struggled with overconfidence, but Maya seemed to maintain a healthy respect for the dangers and complexities of combat operations. "Outstanding work yesterday, Chen," the colonel said, gesturing for her to sit down. "That was textbook precision shooting under difficult conditions. How did you feel about the engagement?" Maya considered her answer carefully. She had learned that senior officers appreciated honesty over false modesty, but she also didn't want to appear overconfident. "Thank you, sir. The conditions were challenging, but within acceptable parameters for the shot. Sergeant Rodriguez provided excellent support, and the intelligence was accurate. I'm satisfied with the execution." The colonel nodded approvingly. He had seen too many young soldiers either become arrogant after early success or struggle with self-doubt despite excellent performance. Maya's balanced assessment suggested maturity beyond her years and the kind of psychological resilience that made for effective long-term military service. "I've been in contact with some people at higher levels," the colonel continued. "Your performance over the past several months has attracted attention. There may be opportunities for advanced training and specialized assignments if you're interested." Maya felt a surge of excitement, but kept her expression neutral. Advanced sniper training meant working with elite units, accessing better equipment, and taking on more challenging missions. It also meant longer deployments, higher risks, and separation from the unit that had become her military family. These were decisions that required careful consideration. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent knock on the colonel's door. His aide entered with a worried expression and a classified message folder marked with the highest priority indicators. Colonel Mitchell read the contents quickly, his expression growing serious. "Chen, how quickly can you be ready for another mission?" he asked, setting down the message. "We've got a situation developing that requires immediate sniper support, and you're the most qualified person we have available." Maya stood up, already mentally shifting into operational mode. "I can be ready in 30 minutes, sir. What's the situation?" The colonel handed her the classified briefing folder. As Maya read the contents, she realized that her previous mission had just been the beginning. Intelligence had intercepted communications indicating that several high-level Taliban leaders were planning to meet at a remote compound to discuss retaliation for their commander's death. The location was even more challenging than her previous target, a mountain fortress nearly 2,000 meters away across terrain that military analysts had previously considered impossible for precision shooting. But that impossible distance was about to become Maya's greatest test, and the shot that would change military history forever.
The briefing room at Forward Operating Base Chapman buzzed with unusual activity as senior officers gathered around detailed topographical maps of the region. Maya found herself at the center of discussions involving battalion commanders, intelligence officers, and special operations liaisons, a level of attention that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. The intelligence was both promising and daunting, a gathering of high-level Taliban commanders at a mountain compound that represented the most significant target opportunity in months. Major Sarah Williams, the intelligence officer, pointed to a location on the map that seemed to defy tactical logic. The compound sits on a plateau approximately 4,500 meters from the nearest feasible firing position, she explained, her voice carrying the weight of the challenge ahead. Our analysis indicates this gathering represents the most senior Taliban leadership in the region, potentially including the individual responsible for coordinating attacks across 3 provinces. Maya studied the terrain with the practiced eye of someone who had learned to read landscapes like a book. The distance was staggering, nearly 3 miles across some of the most challenging mountain terrain on Earth. Weather patterns in the area were notoriously unpredictable, with winds that could shift direction and intensity without warning. Atmospheric conditions at such extreme elevation created additional variables that could affect bullet trajectory in ways that were difficult to calculate precisely. Colonel Mitchell watched Maya's reaction carefully. He had seen her handle pressure before, but this mission represented something entirely different. The military had attempted shots at extreme distances before, but never under these conditions, and never with so much strategic importance hanging in the balance. The intelligence value of the target was enormous, but so was the risk of failure. The timing window is extremely narrow, Major Williams continued. Intelligence indicates the meeting is scheduled to begin at dawn tomorrow, and our sources suggest it will last no more than 2 hours. If we miss this opportunity, it's unlikely we'll get another chance to engage this many high-value targets simultaneously. Maya absorbed the information while mentally calculating the challenges ahead. At 4,500 meters, her bullet would be in flight for over 5 seconds, time enough for wind conditions to change multiple times during the projectile's journey. The extreme distance would also magnify any errors in calculation or execution exponentially. A mistake that might result in missing by inches at normal sniper ranges could mean missing by yards at this distance. The planning session continued for hours, with specialists from various fields contributing their expertise. Meteorologists provided detailed weather forecasts and wind pattern analyses. Ballistics experts calculated trajectory tables for the specific ammunition Maya would be using. Communication specialists planned backup coordination methods in case primary systems failed during the operation. As the meeting concluded, Colonel Mitchell asked Maya to remain behind. When the room emptied, he studied her face for any signs of doubt or hesitation. What he saw instead was the same quiet confidence that had characterized her approach to every previous mission. Chen, I need to ask you directly. Do you believe this shot is possible? The colonel's question carried weight beyond simple tactical planning. Military careers could be made or destroyed by decisions like this, and he needed absolute honesty from his sniper. Maya considered her answer carefully. She had learned to trust her instincts about what was achievable, but she also understood the importance of realistic assessment. Sir, it's at the extreme edge of what's physically possible with our equipment and ammunition. The environmental factors will be the biggest challenge. Wind, atmospheric pressure, temperature variations. But if the conditions are right and our intelligence is accurate, yes, I believe it's doable. That night, Maya spent hours reviewing every aspect of the planned mission. She studied topographical maps until she could visualize the terrain in perfect detail. She reviewed ballistics tables and atmospheric data until the numbers were burned into her memory. She practiced breathing exercises and mental preparation techniques that would help her maintain focus during the long hours of waiting that sniper operations typically required. Her equipment received extra attention during preparation. The M24 Sniper Weapon System she had been using was an excellent rifle, but for this mission, the military provided access to more specialized gear. The rifle was equipped with a premium scope capable of precise adjustments at extreme ranges.
Each round of ammunition was carefully inspected and selected for consistency in weight and powder charge, factors that became crucial at such distances. Sergeant Rodriguez would again serve as her spotter, and their partnership had evolved into an almost telepathic understanding of each other's methods. He had privately expressed doubts about the mission's feasibility, but his loyalty to Maya and confidence in her abilities overrode his concerns. Together, they reviewed every aspect of the operation until they could execute their roles with perfect coordination. The insertion began before midnight, with Maya and Rodriguez being transported to a forward staging area via helicopter. From there, they would need to move on foot across several miles of mountainous terrain to reach their firing position. The movement had to be completed under cover of darkness, requiring careful navigation through areas that might be monitored by enemy forces. The physical challenge of reaching the firing position was significant. Both soldiers carried heavy equipment loads, including the rifle system, ammunition, communications gear, and survival supplies for an extended operation. The terrain was steep and rocky, requiring careful movement to avoid creating noise that might alert enemy forces to their presence. As they moved through the darkness, Maya reflected on the path that had led her to this moment. Every training exercise, every previous mission, every hour spent on rifle ranges had been preparation for challenges like this. The military had invested enormous resources in developing her skills, and now she had the opportunity to justify that investment in the most dramatic way possible.
The final approach to their firing position took 3 hours of careful movement across terrain that seemed designed to test human endurance. Maya and Rodriguez moved with the practiced silence of soldiers who understood that their survival depended on remaining undetected. Every step was planned, every piece of equipment secured to prevent noise, every pause carefully timed to listen for signs of enemy activity. The firing position they had selected offered several advantages, but also significant challenges. Located on a rocky outcropping at approximately 3,200 meters elevation, it provided clear line of sight to the target compound while offering natural concealment from enemy observation. However, the position was exposed to prevailing winds and weather conditions that could change rapidly in the mountain environment. Maya began setting up her rifle system with methodical precision as the first hints of dawn appeared on the eastern horizon. Every adjustment was carefully considered and double-checked. The rifle needed to be perfectly stable for the duration of the operation, as even tiny movements could affect accuracy at extreme distances. She used natural rock formations and her bipod system to create a solid shooting platform that would remain steady for hours if necessary. Rodriguez established his observation position adjacent to Maya's firing point, setting up high-powered spotting scopes and laser range-finding equipment. His role would be crucial in calling wind conditions, confirming target identification, and spotting the impact of Maya's shot. At 4,500 meters, even with the best optics available, target identification and shot assessment would be challenging. As daylight increased, the target compound became visible through their scopes. The intelligence had been accurate. The location was a traditional Afghan fortress built into the mountainside with high stone walls and several buildings arranged around a central courtyard. The defensive position had clearly been chosen for its strategic value, commanding views of the surrounding valleys and difficult access routes that would challenge any conventional assault. Range confirmed at 4,487 meters, Rodriguez reported quietly, his laser rangefinder providing precise measurements. Elevation angle, -7 degrees. This is going to be the longest shot attempted in this theater of operations. Maya made initial adjustments to her scope, using the range and angle data to establish her baseline settings. At this distance, the bullet would drop significantly due to gravity, requiring substantial elevation adjustment. The downward angle would also affect the trajectory in ways that required complex calculations to compensate accurately. Wind conditions proved to be as challenging as anticipated. The mountain environment created complex air currents that changed direction and intensity unpredictably.
Maya had to rely on multiple indicators to assess wind speed and direction, including vegetation movement, dust patterns, and the behavior of birds in the target area. Even small errors in wind estimation could cause significant misses at such extreme range. The waiting began as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Intelligence had indicated that the meeting would commence at dawn, but military operations rarely adhered to precise schedules. Maya and Rodriguez settled in for what could be a long surveillance operation, maintaining their positions while monitoring the target compound for signs of the expected arrivals. The psychological challenge of extreme distance shooting was as significant as the technical difficulties. Maya had to maintain perfect focus and physical control for hours while dealing with the knowledge that her shot would determine the success or failure of the mission. The pressure was enormous, but her training and experience had taught her to channel that pressure into heightened concentration rather than allowing it to create anxiety. As the morning progressed, activity in the target compound increased. Through their scopes, Maya and Rodriguez could observe numerous individuals moving between buildings, but none yet matched the descriptions of their primary targets. The compound's defensive features made detailed identification challenging, as many areas remained in shadow or were partially obscured by walls and structures. Movement in the main courtyard, Rodriguez reported, his voice barely above a whisper. Multiple individuals gathering near the central building. This could be the beginning of the meeting we're expecting. Maya adjusted her position slightly, maintaining her sight picture, while Rodriguez continued his observation. The coordination between sniper and spotter became even more critical at extreme distances, where the smallest details could determine success or failure. Rodriguez would need to confirm target identification and provide real-time wind updates during the final moments before the shot. The target compound was now showing significant activity, with at least a dozen individuals visible in various locations. However, the extreme distance made positive identification extremely difficult. Maya would need to rely on Rodriguez's observations and her own judgment to determine when conditions were optimal for taking the shot. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The wind conditions had been relatively stable for the past 30 minutes, but Maya knew that could change at any moment. Mountain weather was notoriously unpredictable, and she would need to time her shot during a window of favorable conditions. Through her scope, she could see flags and banners in the target compound that served as wind indicators, helping her assess conditions at the destination point. Positive identification on at least 2 primary targets, Rodriguez confirmed, his voice tight with concentration. Both individuals are in the central courtyard area, approximately 50 meters apart. Wind conditions appear steady from the northwest at approximately 12 miles per hour. Maya made initial adjustments to her scope, accounting for the current wind conditions and the precise range to target. Her breathing had automatically shifted into the slow, controlled pattern that optimized her body's stability for precision shooting. Her heart rate had decreased to its lowest level, a physiological response that improved her natural steadiness. The crosshairs settled on the primary target, a tall figure in distinctive white robes that matched intelligence descriptions. The senior Taliban commander. Maya began applying pressure to the trigger, her finger moving with the smooth, steady increase that would break the shot naturally without disturbing her aim.
The moment before the shot stretched into an eternity of perfect focus. Maya's world had contracted to the precise circle of her rifle scope, where wind indicators, target movement, and her own breathing synchronized into a single, critical instant. At 4,487 meters, she was attempting something that pushed the absolute limits of human capability and equipment performance. Her finger continued its steady pressure on the trigger as she made final micro-adjustments for wind drift. The bullet would be in flight for over 5 seconds, time enough for conditions to change multiple times during its journey through the thin mountain air.
Everything depended on her ability to read the environment and predict conditions that wouldn't exist until moments after her shot was fired. The rifle discharged with a sharp crack that seemed to echo endlessly in the mountain silence. Maya maintained her sight picture, watching through her scope as the 7.62mm projectile began its incredible journey across the valley. At such extreme range, she could actually observe the bullet's initial trajectory before it became too distant to track visually. Rodriguez kept his high-powered spotting scope trained on the target area, ready to call the impact and assess the shot's effectiveness. The flight time at this distance meant that both soldiers would need to maintain their positions in observation for several seconds after the shot, watching for the results of Maya's unprecedented attempt. Time of flight, approximately 5.3 seconds, Rodriguez counted quietly, his voice steady despite the tension of the moment. Both soldiers understood that they were witnessing something that had never been attempted under these conditions, a shot that would either become military legend or serve as a costly lesson about the limits of human capability. The seconds stretched as they waited for impact. Maya remained perfectly still, her rifle steady and her eye glued to the scope. At this distance, even confirming a hit would be challenging, requiring careful observation and analysis of the target area's reaction to determine if the shot had found its mark. "Impact!" Rodriguez called, his voice carrying excitement and disbelief in equal measure. Through his spotting scope, he could see the unmistakable signs of a successful shot. The target had dropped instantly, and other figures in the compound were reacting with panic and confusion. The extreme distance and elevated firing position meant that the sound of Maya's rifle wouldn't reach the target area for several more seconds, giving them additional time to observe the results. Maya allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as she confirmed the hit through her own scope. The shot had required perfect execution under the most challenging conditions imaginable, and the successful outcome validated years of training and preparation. However, operational security demanded immediate action. They needed to extract from their position before enemy forces could locate and engage them. The breakdown and packing of equipment proceeded with practiced efficiency. Maya disassembled her rifle system while Rodriguez continued observation of the target area and maintained communication with their extraction team. The compound was now showing significant activity as occupants reacted to the sniper attack, but the extreme distance and difficult terrain would make immediate retaliation unlikely. The extraction route led back through the same challenging terrain they had crossed during insertion, but now they moved with the added urgency of a completed mission. Enemy forces would certainly begin searching for the sniper position, and remaining in the area would become increasingly dangerous as time passed. During the movement back to their extraction point, Maya reflected on what she had just accomplished. The shot represented not just a personal achievement, but a demonstration of capabilities that military planners had considered theoretical. At 4,487 meters, she had successfully engaged a target at a distance that exceeded previous military records by a significant margin. The helicopter extraction proceeded smoothly, with the team reaching friendly territory without enemy contact. During the flight back to base, Maya stared out at the Afghan landscape, knowing that this mission would mark a turning point in her military career. Word of such an unprecedented shot would spread quickly through military channels, attracting attention from the highest levels of command. Back at Forward Operating Base Chapman, the initial debriefing confirmed what Maya and Rodriguez had observed. Intelligence sources reported that the Taliban commander had been killed instantly, disrupting a crucial meeting of senior leadership. The psychological impact on enemy forces was already apparent, as intercepted communications revealed confusion and concern about coalition sniper capabilities. Colonel Mitchell's reaction was a mixture of professional satisfaction and amazement. He had commanded combat units for over 2 decades and had never witnessed anything comparable to Maya's achievement. The shot would require extensive documentation and analysis by military experts who would study every aspect of the engagement for future training and operational planning. "Chen, I don't think you understand what you've just accomplished. This shot is going to change how the military thinks about long-range engagement capabilities. You've just redefined what's possible in precision marksmanship." Maya accepted the praise with characteristic modesty, but she was already thinking about the implications of her success. Military careers were built on consistent performance rather than single achievements, and she knew that this shot would bring both opportunities and pressures that she hadn't previously experienced. The news of the unprecedented shot began spreading through military channels within hours. Senior commanders across the theater of operations received briefings about the engagement, and requests for Maya's participation in future operations started arriving from special operations units and planning staffs. The young sniper, who had been considered too inexperienced for elite assignments, was now being courted by the most prestigious units in the military. But the full impact of Maya's shot was only beginning to unfold. Military analysts were already studying the engagement data, ballistics experts were reviewing the technical aspects of the shot, and Pentagon officials were asking questions about how such capabilities could be integrated into future military doctrine. The shot that stunned the Pentagon was about to change everything.
Within 48 hours of Maya's unprecedented shot, secure communications lines between Forward Operating Base Chapman and the Pentagon were buzzing with activity. The initial reports had been met with skepticism from military analysts who questioned whether such a shot was even physically possible. However, as evidence mounted and independent verification confirmed the details, the highest levels of military command began to grasp the implications of what had occurred in the Afghan mountains. General Patricia Hayes, the Army's senior sniper program administrator, found herself fielding calls from Pentagon officials who wanted detailed explanations of how a 22-year-old soldier had achieved something that military experts had considered beyond current capabilities. The ballistics data alone was enough to rewrite several sections of the Army's marksmanship manuals, but the strategic implications were even more significant. The shot parameters are simply unprecedented, General Hayes explained during a classified video conference with senior Pentagon officials. 4,487 meters in mountainous terrain with variable wind conditions represents a quantum leap in demonstrated capability. We need to understand not just how this was accomplished, but how we can replicate and expand upon these results. Back in Afghanistan, Maya found herself at the center of attention that made her increasingly uncomfortable. Officers who had previously treated her as just another young soldier were now seeking her input on operational planning and tactical questions. The transformation from anonymous squad member to military celebrity had happened almost overnight, bringing benefits and complications she hadn't anticipated. Major Williams approached Maya 3 days after the shot with a folder marked with the highest security classifications. "Chen, I need to brief you on some developments that have emerged since your engagement," she said, her tone suggesting the conversation would cover sensitive material. "Your shot has attracted attention from some very senior people, and there are discussions about expanding your role significantly." The briefing revealed that Maya's achievement had triggered a comprehensive review of military sniper capabilities across all branches of service. The Pentagon was forming a special task force to study extreme range engagement techniques, and Maya was being considered for a central role in developing new training protocols and operational procedures. "The Secretary of Defense has personally reviewed the engagement report," Major Williams continued. "There's interest in having you participate in advanced research and development programs that could revolutionize how we approach precision marksmanship. However, these opportunities would require additional security clearances and specialized training that goes well beyond conventional sniper operations." Maya listened carefully while processing the implications of what she was hearing. Military careers were often defined by a few critical decisions, and she was being offered opportunities that could shape not just her own future, but the direction of military sniper programs for decades to come. The responsibility was daunting, but also incredibly exciting. The technical analysis of Maya's shot was revealing details that fascinated ballistics experts and military researchers. Computer modeling of the bullet's trajectory showed that environmental conditions had been nearly perfect during the brief window when she fired. A change of just 2 miles per hour in wind speed or a 1-degree shift in temperature could have resulted in a complete miss. Dr. Robert Chen, a civilian ballistics expert working with the Army Research Laboratory, had been brought in to analyze the shot's technical aspects. His initial report contained language rarely seen in military documents. Unprecedented, extraordinary, and paradigm-shifting appeared multiple times in his assessment of Maya's achievement. The successful engagement at 4,487 meters represents a confluence of exceptional marksmanship skill, optimal environmental conditions and equipment performance at the absolute limits of current technology, Dr. Chen wrote in his analysis. However, Dr. Chen's report also noted that Maya's achievement suggested that current military doctrine significantly underestimated the potential for extreme-range precision engagements. With proper equipment, training, and environmental analysis, shots at previously impossible distances might become tactically viable under specific circumstances. The psychological impact of Maya's shot extended far beyond the immediate tactical results. Intelligence reports indicated that Taliban and other insurgent forces had begun changing their operational patterns, avoiding areas where they might be vulnerable to long-range sniper fire. The mere possibility that coalition forces could engage targets at such extreme distances was altering enemy behavior across the region. Colonel Mitchell had been fielding requests from Special Operations Commands across the military spectrum. Delta Force, Navy SEALs, Marine Scout Snipers, and Air Force Special Operations all wanted Maya assigned to their units for specialized missions. The competition for her services reflected the recognition that her capabilities represented a unique strategic asset. "I've never seen anything like this in 23 years of military service," Colonel Mitchell confided to Maya during one of their regular meetings. "Senior commanders are literally calling me personally to discuss your availability for operations. You've become what military planners call a force multiplier, a single asset that can influence operations far beyond normal individual capabilities." The media attention, while carefully controlled for security reasons, had also begun building around Maya's story. Military public affairs officers were crafting narratives that highlighted her achievement while protecting operational details and personal information that could compromise future missions. The challenge was balancing legitimate public interest with the security requirements of ongoing combat operations. Maya's family back in Montana had been contacted by military officials who wanted to ensure they understood the significance of their daughter's achievement, while also briefing them on security considerations. Her grandfather, the Korean War veteran who had first taught her to shoot, was reportedly both proud and worried about the attention his granddaughter was receiving.
The invitation to Washington, D.C. arrived 2 weeks after Maya's record-breaking shot, delivered by a courier with security credentials that impressed even Colonel Mitchell. The Pentagon wanted Maya to participate in a classified briefing for senior military leadership, including the Joint Chiefs of Staff and selected members of Congress, who served on defense appropriations committees. The flight to Washington represented Maya's first trip outside the combat theater since her deployment had begun. As the aircraft climbed away from Afghan airspace, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in just a few weeks. The young woman who had arrived in Afghanistan as an unknown infantry soldier was returning to the United States as one of the military's most talked about assets. The Pentagon briefing was scheduled to take place in the National Military Command Center, a facility that Maya had only heard described in military documentaries and news reports. The fact that her achievement had warranted such high-level attention was still difficult for her to fully comprehend, but she was determined to represent herself and her unit with professionalism and accuracy. General Hayes met Maya at the Pentagon entrance, providing an escort through the massive building's labyrinthine corridors. "You need to understand that everyone in that briefing room has read your file and the technical analysis of your shot," she explained as they walked. "They're not just interested in what you accomplished, they want to understand how the military can build upon your success." The briefing room contains some of the most powerful figures in American military leadership. Maya recognized several faces from news broadcasts and official military communications, but the reality of being in their presence was overwhelming. These were the individuals who shaped military policy, allocated resources, and made decisions that affected thousands of soldiers worldwide. "Staff Sergeant Chen," began General Marcus Thompson, the Army Chief of Staff, "your achievement in Afghanistan has generated considerable interest at the highest levels of government. We'd like you to walk us through the engagement from your perspective, focusing on the factors that made such an unprecedented shot possible."
Maya's presentation lasted 45 minutes, during which she methodically explained the technical, environmental, and tactical considerations that had influenced her shot. She answered questions about equipment specifications, training methodologies, and the decision-making process that had led to attempting such an extreme range engagement. The questions from the assembled leadership revealed the depth of their interest in understanding not just what had happened, but how similar capabilities could be developed and deployed more broadly. Congressman James Patterson, chairman of the House Subcommittee on Defense Appropriations, was particularly interested in the cost-effectiveness of developing enhanced sniper capabilities. Staff Sergeant, from your perspective, what would be required to train more soldiers to achieve similar results? Maya's answer was characteristically thoughtful and honest. Sir, I believe that while improved training and equipment could enhance overall sniper capabilities, the specific conditions that made my shot possible were somewhat unique. However, advancing our understanding of extreme-range ballistics and environmental factors could certainly improve success rates at distances previously considered impossible. The briefing concluded with General Thompson outlining several initiatives that Maya's achievement had inspired. The military was establishing a new research program focused on extreme-range precision marksmanship, expanding advanced sniper training curricula, and developing improved equipment specifically designed for extended-range engagements. Staff Sergeant Chen, your shot has opened up tactical possibilities that we're only beginning to understand. We'd like to offer you the opportunity to play a central role in developing these capabilities for the next generation of military snipers. The offer included assignment to the Army Marksmanship Unit, where Maya would work with the military's most elite shooters and researchers to develop new training methods and equipment. She would also participate in classified research programs that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible in precision marksmanship. Following the Pentagon briefing, Maya was given a week of leave to visit her family in Montana and consider the opportunities that had been presented. The drive through the familiar mountain landscapes of her childhood provided perspective on how far she had traveled, both geographically and professionally, since her enlistment. Her grandfather spent hours discussing Maya's military experiences, drawing parallels between his service in Korea and her deployment in Afghanistan. Despite the decades separating their combat experiences, the fundamental challenges of military service, leadership, courage, and technical competence remained remarkably consistent. You've accomplished something remarkable, her grandfather told her during one of their evening conversations on his ranch porch. But more important than the shot itself is what you do with the opportunities it's created. The military is investing in you because they believe you can help other soldiers achieve similar success. Maya's hometown had followed news of her achievement through carefully managed media reports that protected operational security while highlighting her accomplishment. The local newspaper had run a front-page story about their hometown hero, and Maya found herself dealing with a level of attention that felt surreal after months of combat operations. The week in Montana also provided time for Maya to process the psychological impact of her experiences. Combat deployments created stresses and perspectives that were difficult for civilians to understand, and the sudden fame resulting from her record shot added another layer of complexity to her readjustment process. Local veterans, including several who had served in Iraq and Afghanistan, sought Maya out to share their own experiences and offer support. The informal network of combat veterans provided understanding and perspective that helped her process both the tactical significance of her achievement and its broader implications for her military career. As her leave time ended, Maya had reached a decision about her future. The opportunities being offered represented a chance to influence military training and capabilities in ways that could benefit thousands of future soldiers. Despite her preference for direct combat operations, she recognized the strategic value of contributing to institutional knowledge and capability development.
Maya's return to Washington marked the beginning of a new chapter in her military career, one that would take her far from the combat operations where she had first proven herself. The Army Marksmanship Unit facility at Fort Benning represented the pinnacle of military precision shooting, where the service's most talented marksmen worked to push the boundaries of human capability. Colonel David Morrison, commander of the Army Marksmanship Unit, had personally requested Maya's assignment to his organization. A former Special Forces officer with multiple combat deployments, he understood the value of soldiers who had proven themselves under fire while also possessing the technical knowledge necessary for advanced research and development. Chen, what you accomplished in Afghanistan was remarkable, but now we need to figure out how to teach others to achieve similar results, Colonel Morrison explained during Maya's first day at the facility. You'll be working with some of the best shooters and researchers in the military, people who can help translate your instinctive abilities into systematic training methods. The Marksmanship Unit's facilities were unlike anything Maya had previously experienced. The research laboratories contained equipment for analyzing ballistics performance that seemed more appropriate for space programs than military training. High-speed cameras could capture bullet flight patterns in microscopic detail, while environmental simulation chambers allowed researchers to replicate conditions from anywhere in the world. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the unit's lead ballistics researcher, had been analyzing data from Maya's Afghanistan shot for weeks before her arrival. "Your engagement created data points that we've never had before," she explained while showing Maya computer models of the bullet's trajectory. "We can now validate theoretical calculations that have never been tested under real-world conditions." The research program that Maya joined was attempting to answer fundamental questions about the limits of precision marksmanship. Previous military doctrine had established practical engagement ranges based on equipment limitations and historical performance data, but Maya's shot suggested that those limits might be artificially conservative. Working with the research team, Maya participated in extensive testing designed to identify the factors that had made her record shot possible. Everything from her breathing patterns to her trigger technique was analyzed and documented, creating a comprehensive profile of elite marksmanship performance that could be used to improve training programs. The testing process revealed that Maya possessed several physiological advantages that contributed to her exceptional shooting ability. Her natural heart rate was lower than average, providing enhanced stability during precision shooting. Her visual acuity was also significantly above normal, allowing her to detect environmental conditions and target details that other shooters might miss. However, the research also showed that many of Maya's capabilities could be developed through proper training and practice. Her ability to read environmental conditions, for example, was largely based on experience and knowledge that could be taught to other soldiers. The challenge was creating training programs that could efficiently transfer such skills. Maya's work at the Marksmanship Unit also involved developing and testing new equipment designed to extend effective engagement ranges. Improved rifle systems, advanced optics, and specialized ammunition were all being evaluated to determine their potential for enhancing sniper capabilities. The ammunition research proved particularly interesting as ballistics experts worked to develop projectiles optimized for extreme range performance. Maya's experience with environmental factors at extended distances provided crucial insights into the characteristics that would be most valuable for such specialized rounds. One of the most significant aspects of Maya's new role involved training selected soldiers who showed exceptional marksmanship potential. The military had identified candidates from various branches of service who might be capable of achieving similar results with proper instruction and equipment.
Teaching proved to be a challenging transition for Maya, who had developed her skills through intuitive processes that were difficult to explain systematically. Working with experienced instructors, she learned to break down complex shooting techniques into components that could be taught and practiced methodically. Staff Sergeant Michael Torres, one of Maya's first students, was a Marine sniper with multiple combat deployments who had been selected for the program based on his exceptional performance in conventional sniper operations. His initial skepticism about learning from someone younger than himself quickly disappeared as Maya demonstrated techniques that significantly improved his long-range accuracy. "I've been shooting professionally for 8 years," Torres admitted after a training session where Maya had helped him achieve consistent hits at ranges he had never attempted before. "But she sees things in ballistics and environmental conditions that I never learned to recognize. It's like she has a sixth sense for long-range shooting." The success of Maya's initial training programs led to expanded responsibilities and recognition from senior military leadership. Her techniques were being incorporated into advanced sniper curricula across all branches of service, potentially influencing the training of thousands of future precision marksmen. International interest in Maya's achievement had also begun to develop, with Allied military forces requesting information about American advances in long-range marksmanship. NATO allies were particularly interested in understanding whether similar capabilities could be developed within their own sniper programs. The classified nature of much of Maya's current work meant that many details of her achievement remained unknown to the general public. But her influence on military sniper doctrine was becoming increasingly significant. Military planners were beginning to consider tactical options that had been impossible before Maya's demonstration of extended range capabilities. As Maya approached her first anniversary at the marksmanship unit, she reflected on the unexpected direction her military career had taken. The combat soldier who had enlisted to serve on the front lines had become a researcher and instructor whose work would influence military capabilities for decades to come. The shot that had stunned the Pentagon was continuing to generate dividends in ways that Maya had never anticipated, proving that exceptional achievement in military service could create opportunities and responsibilities far beyond immediate tactical results.
2 years after her record-breaking shot in Afghanistan, Maya found herself standing before another gathering of senior military officials, this time presenting the results of her research and training programs. The classified briefing at the Pentagon was designed to evaluate the progress that had been made in developing extreme-range sniper capabilities, based on the lessons learned from her unprecedented achievement. General Hayes, now promoted to Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, introduced Maya to the assembled leadership. Staff Sergeant Chen's work over the past 2 years has fundamentally changed how we approach long-range precision marksmanship, she began. The programs she has helped develop are producing results that validate the potential we recognized after her engagement in Afghanistan. Maya's presentation included statistical data that would have seemed impossible just 3 years earlier. Students in her advanced training programs were consistently achieving successful engagements at ranges exceeding 3,000 meters, with some exceptional shooters reaching distances approaching her original record. The systematic approach to extreme-range shooting that she had helped develop was proving that her achievement was not just a lucky shot, but evidence of capabilities that could be replicated with proper training and equipment. The key breakthrough came from understanding that extreme-range shooting requires a completely different approach to environmental analysis, Maya explained to the assembled officers. Traditional sniper training focuses on relatively static conditions, but at distances over 3,000 meters, shooters must predict how conditions will change during the bullet's flight time.
The training programs Maya had developed incorporated advanced meteorological analysis, computer modeling of ballistic trajectories, and intensive practice with environmental prediction techniques. Students learned to use multiple indicators to assess wind patterns, atmospheric pressure changes, and temperature variations that could affect bullet performance over extreme distances. The success of these programs had attracted attention from special operations commands worldwide. Maya had been invited to train elite snipers from allied nations, sharing American advances in extreme-range marksmanship while learning about techniques and equipment developed by other military organizations. One of the most significant developments for Maya's research was the creation of specialized equipment designed specifically for extreme-range engagements. Working with military contractors and ballistics experts, she had helped develop improved rifle systems, advanced optics, and specialized ammunition optimized for distances previously considered impossible. The new equipment included rifles with enhanced accuracy potential, scopes with unprecedented magnification and clarity, and ammunition designed to maintain stability and energy at extreme ranges. While expensive to produce, the strategic value of these systems was considered significant enough to justify the investment in specialized capabilities. Field testing of the new equipment and training methods had been conducted in various environments around the world, validating the techniques under different climatic and terrain conditions. Results consistently showed that properly trained snipers using advanced equipment could achieve successful engagements at ranges that had been considered impossible just a few years earlier. Maya's work had also contributed to advances in military technology beyond sniper operations. The environmental analysis techniques developed for extreme-range shooting proved valuable for artillery units, drone operations, and other military applications requiring precise long-distance calculations. The strategic implications of enhanced long-range precision capabilities were reshaping military planning and doctrine. Operations that had previously required large-scale coordinated attacks could now potentially be accomplished by small, highly skilled sniper teams operating at distances that provided exceptional security and flexibility. Intelligence agencies had reported that potential adversaries were taking note of American advances in long-range marksmanship, with some nations investing heavily in developing similar capabilities. The competitive aspect of military technology development meant that Maya's achievements had initiated a new area of international military advancement. Despite the success of her research and training programs, Maya occasionally found herself missing the direct action and clear objectives of combat operations. The institutional responsibilities she now carried were important and influential, but they lacked the immediate intensity and camaraderie that had characterized her deployment in Afghanistan. Colonel Morrison, recognizing Maya's occasional restlessness, had structured her assignment to include periodic return visits to combat theaters where she could observe the implementation of her training methods under real operational conditions. These trips provided valuable feedback for her programs while satisfying her desire to remain connected to active military operations. During one such visit to a forward operating base in Syria, Maya had the opportunity to observe soldiers she had trained executing extreme-range engagements against enemy targets. The successful application of her techniques in combat validated the practical value of her research and provided motivation for continued program development. The soldiers Maya observed in Syria were achieving consistent results at ranges that would have been considered impossible when she first enlisted. Her systematic approach to extreme-range shooting had been successfully transferred to a new generation of military snipers, creating capabilities that enhanced American military effectiveness across multiple theaters of operation. As Maya prepared to conclude her presentation to the Pentagon leadership, she reflected on the unexpected trajectory her military career had taken. The shot that had initially been viewed as an extraordinary individual achievement had evolved into institutional capabilities that would influence military operations for decades to come.
The programs we developed represent just the beginning of what's possible in extreme-range precision marksmanship, Maya concluded. As equipment continues to improve and our understanding of ballistics advances, we can expect to see continued expansion of effective engagement ranges and tactical applications. The briefing concluded with approval for expanded funding and resources for Maya's programs, reflecting the military leadership's recognition of their strategic value. Her work had successfully transitioned from individual achievement to institutional capabilities, creating lasting contributions to American military effectiveness. The young soldier who had once been told she was too young for special forces had become one of the military's most valuable assets, proving that exceptional individual achievement could generate benefits far beyond immediate tactical results.
5 years after her record-breaking shot echoed across the Afghan mountains, Master Sergeant Maya Chen stood at the podium of the National Defense University, addressing an audience of senior military officers from around the world. The young soldier who had once been dismissed as too inexperienced for elite assignments was now recognized as one of the foremost experts in extreme-range precision marksmanship. The lecture hall was filled with colonels, generals, and their international counterparts, all gathered to hear Maya present the latest developments in long-range sniper doctrine. Her research had evolved far beyond the initial analysis of her record shot, encompassing advances in ballistics, environmental science, and human performance that were reshaping military capabilities across multiple domains. When I took that shot at 4,487 meters, I had no idea that it would lead to the systematic programs we have today, Maya began, her voice carrying the quiet confidence that had characterized her throughout her military career. What we've learned since then is that human potential, properly developed and supported by advanced technology, extends far beyond what we previously thought possible. The audience listened intently as Maya described the evolution of extreme-range sniper training from an experimental program to a standard component of advanced military education. Students from her programs were now serving in elite units around the world, applying techniques that have been developed through careful analysis of her original achievement and subsequent research. Statistical data presented during the lecture revealed the dramatic expansion of demonstrated sniper capabilities over the past 5 years. Average maximum engagement ranges for qualified snipers had increased by over 60%, while accuracy rates at extended distances had improved significantly through enhanced training methods and equipment. Maya's work had also contributed to advances in related military technologies. The environmental analysis techniques developed for extreme-range shooting had been adapted for use in artillery fire control, drone operations, and long-range missile guidance systems. The interdisciplinary nature of ballistics research meant that advances in one area often generated benefits across multiple military applications. International cooperation had become a significant aspect of Maya's current responsibilities. NATO allies and other partner nations had established exchange programs allowing their best snipers to train with American extreme-range specialists. These collaborative efforts were strengthening military relationships while advancing the overall state of precision marksmanship capabilities among allied forces. The technological developments that Maya had helped initiate were continuing to evolve at a rapid pace. Military contractors were producing increasingly sophisticated equipment designed specifically for extreme-range applications, while ammunition manufacturers were developing specialized projectiles optimized for extended-distance performance. During a break in her presentation, Maya was approached by Colonel Jennifer Walsh, a former student who now commanded a Special Operations Sniper Unit. "Ma'am, I wanted to thank you personally," Colonel Walsh said. "The techniques you taught me have been directly responsible for mission successes that wouldn't have been possible with conventional training." Such feedback had become common for Maya, as soldiers she had trained reported successful applications of extreme-range techniques in combat operations around the world. The practical validation of her methods under real-world conditions provided continuing motivation for her research and program development efforts. Maya's personal life had also evolved significantly during her years at the forefront of military research. She had married Captain David Rodriguez, her former spotter from Afghanistan, in a ceremony attended by many of the soldiers and officers who had been part of her remarkable journey. Their shared experiences in combat and subsequent military careers had created a bond that transcended normal relationships.
The couple had recently purchased a small ranch in Colorado where Maya could continue her research while enjoying the mountain environment that had shaped her early development as a marksman. The ranch included a private shooting range where she could test new techniques and equipment without the constraints of formal military facilities. Maya's influence extended beyond military circles into academic and scientific communities. Universities with ballistics and physics programs regularly invited her to speak about the practical applications of theoretical research. Her work had bridged the gap between academic study and real-world military applications in ways that benefited both communities. The media attention surrounding Maya's achievements had been carefully managed to protect operational security while highlighting American military capabilities. Feature articles in military publications and controlled interviews with defense journalists had helped build public understanding of modern military technology without compromising sensitive information. As Maya concluded her presentation at the National Defense University, she announced her next career transition. After careful consideration, she had decided to accept a position with a major defense contractor where she would lead research into next-generation sniper systems and training methods. My time in uniform has been incredibly rewarding, but I believe I can make the greatest contribution to military capabilities through private sector research, Maya explained to the audience. The programs we've established will continue to evolve and improve, but the next phase of advancement may require the flexibility and resources that private industry can provide. The transition from active duty to civilian contractor represented another unexpected turn in Maya's career, but it reflected her commitment to continuing the work that had begun with a single, extraordinary shot in the Afghan mountains. Her new position would allow her to pursue advanced research projects that might not be possible within traditional military structures. The final questions from her audience revealed the continuing interest in extreme-range capabilities and their strategic implications. Military planners from various nations were exploring how enhanced sniper capabilities could be integrated into their operational doctrines, while researchers were investigating applications for the environmental analysis techniques Maya had helped develop. As the presentation ended and the audience dispersed, Maya reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought her from a small ranch in Montana to the forefront of military technology development. The shot that had initially been viewed as an extraordinary individual achievement had generated institutional changes that would influence military capabilities for generations to come. The young woman who had once been told she was too young for special forces had proven that exceptional achievement, properly leveraged and systematically developed, could create lasting contributions far beyond immediate tactical results. Her legacy would live on in the thousands of soldiers who had been trained using her methods, the equipment that had been developed based on her insights, and the military doctrine that had been shaped by her unprecedented achievement. The 4,500-meter shot that stunned the Pentagon had become the foundation for a revolution in precision marksmanship that would continue to evolve long after Maya's individual contribution to military service had concluded. Her story served as a reminder that in military service, as in life, the most significant achievements often come from those who are underestimated, and that individual excellence, properly applied, can generate benefits that extend far beyond personal recognition or career advancement. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.